frankly, well, perhaps you're gay. Is there a point to all these fancy clothes? With all these buckles from your head down to your toes? Very simple, why don't you sit another girl? It's not so easy, but I'm giving it a whirl. Is there something that you're trying to prove? With all the makeup and the way you move, are you looking for some sympathy? No, I'm trying to be the best girl I can be. Very simple, but I'm just another girl. It's not so easy, but I'm giving it a whirl. Like my martini's dry, cosmos I won't deny. Smoke those old cigarettes. Thank God I'm not dead yet. Done all these crazy things, short of a wedding ring. Just stop the
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Callista Solomon, and this is nlcTrans. Tonight I'm here with my dear friend and co-host, T.a.L.L. Alexander. Anyway, sorry we weren't here last week. Had a little, well, actually Tara had a work emergency, so we weren't able to get here. But anyway, so we're here tonight. Our new time slot for the next, I guess the next 12 weeks anyway, something like that.
11 more.
11 more after tonight. And then from there, I'm not sure. I think we're going to be off for...
We're going to be off the air for the 13 weeks after that. We might be doing some taped shows, so you might look for us on Channel 24.
On the other channel, yeah.
We have to work some of that out.
Yeah, but yeah, we'll be off for one season, but then we'll be back on, guaranteed. So, but anyway, so here we are. And I hope all of our friends up in the northeast corner survived the crazy weather up there. I think they're having some swirly things up there or something going on, but kind of crazy. And so hopefully everybody's okay. Anyway, a few things to talk about tonight. And I know we have a few announcements. I know I'm going to start with this one, which is a benefit for our friends at the Alliance for Living, who we talk about occasionally. But apparently, this is Friday. This Friday night, July 12th, 8 p.m. at the Mohegan Sun Cabaret. There is going to be a well, it's Broadway by Request is apparently the title of it, and it benefits the Alliance for Living. Very cool. So very good cause, and this is the Shaken Not Stirred Players. So a good time will be had by all, and it's benefits a good organization. So this is the Friday night. 8 p.m. at the Mohegan Sun Cabaret, and you can get tickets if you want to go to that. $25 pre-sale, $35 day of the show, and they can be purchased from Ticketmaster or from by going to mohegansun.com/entertainment, and that will be a good time for all, I'm sure. I know we have some announcements about OutCT.
Well, OutCT is the relatively new organization that is organizing community and cultural events here now in Southeast Connecticut. GLBT-friendly community events. GLBTQP, yes, QSRIA,
stuff, yeah.
Gender and sexual minority friendly cultural events.
Yeah.
And you can find them at outct.org, and they have an events page, which is what I'm looking at here. One of the things that's happening tonight and tomorrow night at O'Neill's, they're doing a reading of a play, A Great Wilderness by Sam D. Hunt. with Style and Performance by Ben Riemeller and Donna McKenchie during the Cabaret and Performance concert. You can purchase tickets online or call the box office. Cabaret discounts are for general admission, not applicable to premium seats. But OutCT has a special deal going. If you buy one ticket, you can bring a friend for free if you use the discount code OutCT14FREE.
Cool. Free is always good.
Buy one, get one free. There's a reading of the play. You already mentioned Broadway by Request. There's a professional mixer for OpenCT, Pfizer's LGBT and Ally Colleague Resource Group monthly mixer. 4 to 6:30 at the Buckley House on Bank Street. And Saturday, July 13th, so that's coming right up. The 7th Annual Shoreline Acoustic Music Festival. A diverse lineup including Pat Dodonna, Arlene Wow, Fatal Film, etc. at the Hygienic Art Park in New London. Again, there's a poster at outct.org. You can get all the show times, or all the times the performers will be on stage, and more information about the Shoreline Acoustic Music Festival this Saturday. And then coming up next month, Sunday, August 4th, at the Hygienic Art Park, the Connecticut Gay Men's Chorus will be performing from 7 to 9 p.m. And then at the Hygienic Art Park a couple days later, August 7th, they're going to do La Cage aux Folles, which, for anyone that doesn't know, is the story, play, musical movie behind the Birdcage with Robin Williams and Nathan Lane did several years ago.
Yeah.
So that'll be at the Hygienic in August.
Very cool. So, anyway, I'm going to talk briefly here.
Yeah,
because your jaw's popping
up again.
Well, see, here's the thing. With you're probably all familiar with TMJ out there. It's the temporomandibular joint, and everybody has problems with the jaw, the little ball and socket or whatever it is in the jaw there. It tends to be a very fragile little joint. And
what did I do to make it mad?
You talk a lot. I'm sorry.
I've talked a lot for a long time. Why did it start 2 weeks ago?
You worn it out. Hey, I'm teasing you.
I know.
But yeah, so you've been having some problems with your jaw there. The other thing is getting punched in the jaw tends to aggravate that. And I swear I didn't touch her. I promise.
She just wants to. You threw that option out there just so you could clear your name of it in case anybody else in the world knew about it.
Yeah. Anyway, all teasing aside, I wanted to talk very briefly. This is an article I pulled out of the Advocate regarding ENDA, which is near and dear to our hearts. That's the Employment Non-Discrimination Act. But anyway, so I'm going to read this to you quickly. Long-sought protections for LGBT Americans from discrimination in employment took a first step forward today as it was passed through a Senate committee on a bipartisan vote. The Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee passed the Employment Non-Discrimination Act 15-7, advancing the bill that would prohibit employment discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. The bill, which does not contain religious exemptions, now heads to the full Senate, where it has a solid majority in favor with 53 co-sponsors, but a majority doesn't guarantee passage in the Senate since so many bills are now filibustered, requiring 60 votes to break. A statement from the White House press secretary says that President Obama welcomes the bipartisan approval of the bill. The president has long supported an inclusive ENDA, which would enshrine into law strong, lasting, and comprehensive protections against employment discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity, the statement read. Representatives Jared Polis, a Democrat, and Irina Ross Leitinen, I'm not familiar with that name, but a Republican, are leading the campaign to pass ENDA through a Republican-controlled House. Our laws must match our values as Americans, which is why it is so critical to provide equal protections for all workers, said Polis. After the Senate approval of the bill in committee Wednesday, that is why I am pleased that the Senate has begun to take steps toward the passage of a fully inclusive Employment Non-Discrimination Act. As the sponsor of the Employment Non-Discrimination Act in the House of Representatives, I am committed to working with President Obama, Senator Merkley, Representative Ros-Lehtinen, and my colleagues in the LGBT Equality Caucus to ensure that no American is fired just because of their gender identity or sexual orientation. Currently, 17 states and Washington, D.C. extend such protections for LGBT workers, and another 4 provide the protections for LGBT people.
Which means there are 33 states that don't provide protections.
I'm proud to say that we are one of them, but yes, a federal Employment Non-Discrimination Act would be a very good thing. So happy that it's moving forward.
One of the interesting bits that I have to add to that is that when an inclusive ENDA was last brought to a floor vote in the House, it passed the House 235 to 184, and that was in 2007. So there would be a good chance to pass the House.
If it gets out of the Senate.
If it gets out of the Senate. But certainly, the Americans like to think that we want to live in a meritocracy. But so often nobody wants the oversight to guarantee we live in a meritocracy. But that's what this would do, is not extend any special privileges to GLBT or gender dysphoric people. Just if you're failing at your job, you can be fired. If you're causing trouble at work, you can be fired. All the normal reasons you can be fired for, with the exception of being fired just because you might be a homosexual or a bisexual or an asexual, or just because your gender identity is a little different than what someone would expect you to have. That's not. You can be fired for breaking the published dress code, but you can't be fired because your boss doesn't like your clothes. That's the distinction to be made. If there's a published dress code and you break the dress code, then that's grounds for disciplinary action. But if your boss doesn't like what you're wearing, that's where the gender identity and expression protection gets to come in and says, you can't fire me because you disapprove of the clothes I'm wearing if I'm in compliance with the corporate policy.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's a good thing. We've gone round and round and round with this stuff, and there is often a lot of confusion, and
it doesn't mean you can't fire gay and lesbian and bisexual and transgender people. It means that you can't fire them just because you don't like them.
You have to have a reasonable reason.
You have to have a work-related reason to let them go, or you have to have a work-related reason to not promote them or not hire them if they're the best candidate for the job.
And you can't, and if somebody's transgender, you can't tell them that, well, I don't like the gender, the gender of the clothes you're wearing. You violate the dress code, in my opinion, because I think you should be dressed as a man instead of a woman. Right?
That doesn't come from any personal experience, does it?
or we can't tell you, no, of course not. Or we can't tell you that that it's okay. It's okay for you to be transgendered. We accept that, but we want you to wear these guy clothes. It's like, we
have a special dress code for the trans women that's not the same as the women in the company.
Right. Yeah. Anyway. But yeah, and so yeah, we've talked certainly a lot about this, but there's often a lot of confusion.
And you've had that experience where you had a former boss who knew you through transition and post-transition was telling you what you were now allowed and not allowed to wear. And as an executive in an office, he was trying to make you wear jeans and T-shirts and sweatshirts and coveralls instead of the attire that would be appropriate for a woman in an office. He was trying to cover you up.
Yeah. Absolutely. My opinion, of course, but...
Well, no, I mean, he actually said those things. Your opinion is only his motives.
Well, exactly, yeah.
Just for clarity there.
Yeah. The motivations obviously are what I saw them as, and I can't delve into people's minds, so I don't.
No, but you know what the dress code was. You know what the men and women at your former place of employment were wearing, and you were not outside that standard.
Right. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, it's amazing that, and I could tell you stories, but I'm not going to because
I'll tell them.
No, because
we have lots of other things to talk
lots of stories, and we have lots of things to talk about, but
we've already gone through 20 minutes.
But yeah, so anyway, have you got something there you want to talk about, or should I?
Oh, that's several things, but if you've got something, you can go for it.
You can start if you like,
okay.
And I'll pick up.
Well, this is an interesting one because it's not too old. A couple weeks ago, the Boy Scouts of America decided to allow youth, 18 and under, who professed being a homosexual, to continue participating in Boy Scouts. Now, for most people, most of those years, I mean, Boy Scouts is typically 11 to 18, so this is the age when you are finding your sexuality, so to speak.
Sure.
With it ongoing in through your 20s and even later in life, figuring out who you're exactly attracted to. But for the most part, 11 to 14, 15, 16, you're not on average, I guess, people are, but we'd like to think kids at that age aren't sexually active.
Yeah.
So it really wasn't a great risk for these for the Boy Scouts of America to allow youth who profess to be gay into the program, because they're not exactly going to be indoctrinating their fellow scouts. But adults who profess to be gay, well, now they're much older, they have well-established gay identities, and they may be trying to use the power relationship that exists between adults, leaders, and the youth scouts to influence their... Yeah, I know. Basically, that boils down to any adult who takes advantage of a kid in any kind of sexual way is a criminal. It doesn't matter, what their sexual orientation is. And
sure, it's a felony no matter how you look at it.
And honestly, it's terribly offensive, I think, my opinion, that you assume someone who's gay is going to be forcing their sexuality on you or flaunting their sexuality in front of you any more than heterosexual people do. But the Boy Scouts of America allowing gay youth was a big enough deal that that a group has now decided to launch a Christian alternative to the Boy Scouts of America.
Really?
The Boy Scouts of America being founded on Christian values.
Sure.
It's apparently not Christian enough because now they let kids who profess be homosexuals in the group. So the fledgling organization that opposed the Boy Scouts of America's decision to accept openly gay scouts announced July 9th that it will launch an alternative group with a Christian worldview. And any Christians out there who are LGBT friendly ought to be really upset by this too. But with the quote, "It's our vision to be the premier national character development organization for young men, which produces godly and responsible husbands, fathers, and citizens." Which is fine, because that's not what Boy Scouts profess. But the organization's membership policy will focus on sexual purity rather than sexual orientation. Now, just for clarification,
What does that mean?
the Boy Scouts of America, the membership application doesn't bring up sexuality at all.
Hopefully not. Yeah.
No, not when you're talking, 10 to 18-year-olds. So, yeah, who's talking about sex now?
Yeah.
The issue with scouting is just that when you're going to allow a young man to be in the program, to be openly flaunting his sexuality, that's just inappropriate, and parents do not think it's a clean and safe environment for their kids.
Huh.
In fact, the Boy Scouts of America also forbid sexual behavior by youth members.
Yes.
So this is what gets my goat, is the notion that someone who is gay is going to be openly flaunting it in front of everybody. He's going to be trying to have sex with every other Boy Scout they come across.
Yeah.
Not any more than the heterosexual boys are trying to have sex with every brownie they come across.
Yeah, and certainly, in all fairness, somebody that's gay is probably more likely to hide it than some, if anything. Certainly at that age, you're going to be afraid of the consequences of
Getting beaten up on a camp out.
A society where that kind of thing still happens, unfortunately, and so yeah, I think.
Let me think here. I'm going to be alone in the woods with these 5 other guys. We all have knives.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's going to be the environment where you're going to be flaunting it in front of people that aren't accepting.
Yeah.
But anyway, so anyway, we talked about this when the Boy Scout thing first came up, is that a couple of years, a year or two ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when the Girl Scouts laid down the law and said that they were going to let girls, that was their focus, youth leadership was the focus, which, by the way, is the focus of Boy Scouts. The Boy Scouts of America is advertised as a youth leadership organization. So thank you for showing a little bit of the leadership there. But when the Girl Scouts laid down the law in their organization, there was a group that went out and formed the American Heritage Girls, which was supposed to be the Christian extremist approved group for girls as opposed to Girl Scouts of America. And we had said at the time that, okay, so form the American Heritage Boys and leave Boy Scouts alone.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like they're actually going to do that. They haven't come up with an actual name for the group, and the Boy Scouts of America hasn't commented on it, because they say they're focused on reaching and servicing youth in order to help them grow into good strong citizens. So when I first saw the headline, I thought it was going to be about somebody who, because the BSA made such a weak attempt, a weak ruling, they were going to form their own. But no. This was the we don't allow gay adults isn't strong enough.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be about teaching youth leadership, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Am I still going, or do you want to go?
Oh, no, you can. If you've got stuff, go ahead.
Well, this was an interesting one. This is from Huffington Post, Gay Voices. But if anybody's seen the commercials, if anybody's watching here, Netflix has started doing original programming. There's 2 or 3 shows that they are producing original episodes. Well, there's at least 2 series that they're producing originally, and then Netflix has picked up, I think, Arrested Development for continual development. And one of those new shows has been advertised a little bit recently, is called Orange is the New Black.
Yeah, I heard about that.
So this will be available on Netflix starting tomorrow. Tomorrow it makes its debut, as a matter of fact, July 11th. The show is based on the best-selling memoir of the same name, tells the true story of Piper Kerman, who spent a year in a woman's prison for a crime she had committed a decade earlier with her then-girlfriend, who turned out to be a drug smuggler. It turns out that while she... So this is I believe this is a fictional story based on her real life experiences. Orange is the new black. Orange being, of course, being the color of the prisoner
prison color,
jumpsuits.
Yeah.
What do I want to say? When Piper Kerman was actually in jail, she ended up having a transgender cellmate.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Who is played in the series by transgender actress Laverne Cox.
Wow. That's
Watch.
cool.
Huffington Post Live has a video that you can watch about Piper Kerman talking about her experience in prison, having this transgender cellmate, and how Kerman's eyes were opened to the treatment of transgender people in prison. Yeah, well, that's that. That's that. So actually, I ran out of steam there, but. But yes, so you know, here's another place where it's not a transgender focus.
No, sure.
But here is literally a real life experience,
Yeah.
fictionally represented, played by a transgender actress, the transgender cellmate, and the impact that person had on Piper Kerman is represented in the TV series. That transgender people in prison face a higher rate of violence, just like they do out in the rest of society. And if it rises to the point where they have to put you in seclusion in order to protect you, then you get to live inside of a 6x10 cell for 23 hours a day.
Yeah. Yeah, which is
Protective custody.
Yeah, which is something that turns out to be pretty horrible and will make you crazy.
It'll make you crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not a good thing. Solitary confinement is something that doesn't do you much good, and it sort of it sort of flies in the face of
Justice.
Well,
Sorry.
Certainly, yeah, of our Constitution, which cruel and unusual punishment.
That the punishment should fit the crime.
Yeah, and that is. It's not a subject that I'm really qualified to argue. There are certainly a lot of people out there that know a lot about this stuff, but it seems to me that it's cruel and unusual. Because,
Well, most people who've experienced it would probably say that's true.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not suggesting that people shouldn't be incarcerated for crimes that they commit. If you can do the crime, you should do the time, right? But that doesn't mean that if your punishment is to give up your freedom for a certain period of time, that's fine. That doesn't mean that you're supposed to come out crazy. Taking my sanity in the process isn't part of the deal, and isn't good for anybody. So yeah. But it's funny because that is something that I've thought a lot about, and it's one of those odd things that I've never been to prison. But it's one of those things you think, as a transgender person, you think about that, and it is one of the things that pre-transition, before I made the decision to transition, I didn't really think about this stuff much. But once I'd made that decision and going through transition, I thought about it quite a lot. What happens? Obviously there are issues if you get, you pulled over or something, and during that, there's a period of time in there while you're in transition where things don't always match up right, documents don't match right, and what happens when you get pulled over by the police or something, and God forbid something happens and you commit a crime or you're accused of a crime, whether you committed or not. What happens if you wind up in jail or in prison?
If you're dating a drug smuggler and you're picked up carrying stuff around.
Yeah, things happen. Bad things happen to good people sometimes, and what happens then? And sort of the consequences. What happens if you wind up in that system, and how are you going to be treated? And I found that is something that
I cut my hair short, I bind my chest, and I go to the men's prison.
Well, it's something that I thought about a lot during transition, and it's I've said this before, probably in other venues, but But it's one of the things that that I thought about, and it was one of the things that oddly enough, when I was, because not everybody in transition has the gender reassignment surgery, and not everybody has it right away. Sometimes it takes a long time, and there's a period of time in there, and it's like one of the things that I thought a lot about, and it's sort of like, well, when should I do this? How soon should I do this? And do I want to do this? And one of the things that occurred to me was that prior to the surgery, the idea that I might, if something, God forbid, something happens, the idea that I might wind up having to go to a men's prison or something is scary as hell when you're transgender.
But that's not to say that if you go to a women's prison, that it's any less scary.
No, it's probably not. But and honestly, I don't have experience with either, so I can't speak to that. But I can tell you that the idea of as a transgender woman, the idea of the potential to wind up in a men's prison or even in a men's jail cell or something, that's scary. That's really scary.
Post surgery, you'll basically, for clarification, for anyone that hasn't seen any of our older shows, most state laws will send you wherever your genitals match.
Yeah.
So you can be several years into your transition, but if you can't medically have surgery, if you opt out of having surgery, if you're not interested in having genital surgery, if you can't afford it yet, and there's any number of things.
Yeah.
If your other medication counterindicates surgery, there's lots of reasons why it might happen.
And so it often doesn't happen right away. Sometimes there is a delay.
Happen right away or at all.
Yeah.
Being a choice people get to make. But yeah, most states you go wherever your genitals match.
Yeah. Kind of scary.
And if so I guess my commentary on that is, even if they were to send you where your gender marker matches, if you hadn't had surgery and you're a trans woman with, granted, hormones make them greatly diminished and non-functioning, but otherwise apparently male genitalia in a women's prison, you're going to get harassed. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just one of those things. It's one of those odd things that you think about.
Yeah.
And I did. I don't. One of the really crazy things, and in transition, certainly, I went through years of sort of, self-evaluation and sort of introspection before finally, making a decision about what I was going to do. And you think about a lot of things, and you think you get to a point where you think you've thought everything through, and you know everything that's going to happen, all the possibilities, and you absolutely have a handle on all of it. And then, of course, you start transition, and the universe throws curves at you all over the place. And there are always all these crazy things that, oh my God, I wasn't expecting that, and I wasn't thinking about that, and wow, all the amazing things. And a lot of them were really, truly amazing and wonderful and surprising. But I can say that there are always a few things that sort of catch us sort of off guard. But anyway, so that's sort of where that all came from.
Yeah.
I've gotten off track here. But anyway, here's something about, if we have time, just a new poll, and this was a poll from Quinnipiac. They do a lot of polls at Quinnipiac, it seems.
There are a bunch of polling centers. Quinnipiac is one, Rasmussen's another.
But anyway, this is about New Jersey. New Jersey
Times does them too.
Yeah, New Jersey wants marriage. 60% of New Jersey voters say they would support establishing legal marriage equality in the Garden State, according to a Quinnipiac poll released Wednesday. 31% of those polled said that they did not support marriage equality becoming the law, with the remaining 9% having no opinion. Among Republicans, 39% would support a marriage law, while 69% of Democrats support the bill. An overwhelming 83% of those between the ages of 18 to 34 support the right to marry, while 63% of those ages 35 to 54 support it, and half of those over age 55 support marriage equality. The amount of people supporting a marriage equality law is up 8 percentage points since January 2012, but lower than it was in March of this year, with 64% in support. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie vetoed a marriage equality bill last year, saying that the issue should go to a public vote. I think this is not an issue that should rest solely in my hands or the hands of the Senate President or the Speaker or the other 118 members of the legislature, he said last year. Let's let the people of New Jersey decide what is right for the state, but local advocates and Democrats in the state legislature are now trying to conjure enough votes to override the veto. New Jersey and neighboring Pennsylvania are the remaining Northeast states without legal marriage equality. So that's interesting. Polls are always fun. But you know, it's interesting. You know, we've been, certainly I've been pulling up a lot of polls lately anyway. And it does seem like the tide is turning definitely in our favor on this one. Well, in our favor in that I certainly support marriage equality. I think it's, unfair to not let people who love each other get married. So
2 consenting adults.
yeah.
As Connecticut state constitution was written, 2 consenting adults.
Yeah. We are a good state.
2 consenting adults can enter into a civil contract of mutual rights and responsibilities.
Yeah. And speaking of Pennsylvania, here's one. On a related subject, the ACLU is suing for marriage equality in Pennsylvania. American Civil Liberties Union filed a federal lawsuit today in Pennsylvania on behalf of 23 residents of the state who are seeking marriage equality. The lawsuit is the latest to be filed in the wake of the U.S. Supreme Court's landmark decisions in favor of same-sex marriage in June. The group of plaintiffs, which include 10 couples, 2 minor children of those couples, and 1 widow, who recently lost her partner of 29 years, argue Pennsylvania's own Defense of Marriage Act violates both the fundamental right to marry and the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. We only want what every married couple wants, to express our love and commitment in front of friends and family, and the security and protections that only marriage provides, said plaintiff Deb Whitewood, who has been with her spouse, Susan, for 22 years. Our life is built around our relationship and the family we have made. The Whitewoods are the lead plaintiffs in the lawsuit. The couple first demonstrated their commitment to one another in a ceremony in 1993 and again in 2001 when they entered into a civil union in Vermont. But Pennsylvania law still fails to legally recognize the relationship, depriving the couple and their family of the security and dignity of a marriage. As the cradle of American liberty, it is shameful that Pennsylvania denies some families the dignity and respect that can only come with marriage, said Reggie Shufford, Executive Director of the ACLU of Pennsylvania. It's wrong that the state where these couples live, work, and raise families treats them as second-class couples. Additional Pennsylvania plaintiffs, Edwin Hill and David Palmer of Bangor, Pennsylvania, Helena Miller and Dara Raspberry from Philadelphia, Heather and Kath Poehler from Downington, PA, and Marla Katamal and Julia LeBur from Harrisburg, PA, are already married, having wed in other states, but are treated as legal strangers in their home state. Plaintiff Maureen Hennessy of Philadelphia is a widow who lost her spouse after 29 years together. Because her spouse was a woman, their marriage is not recognized by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and she is not provided the protections afforded to widows under state law. The ACLU also announced today that it will amend an existing adoption lawsuit in North Carolina and will file a marriage lawsuit in Virginia as co-counsel with the ACLU of Virginia and Lambda Legal in the coming weeks. In the past few years, we have seen an astonishing and welcome shift towards Americans embracing the idea that married same-sex couples and those who wish to marry should not be regarded as less than any other family, said Leslie Cooper of the ACLU's LGBT project. Whether it's through litigation, through the legislature, or at the ballot box, we will continue to work to broaden the number of states where same-sex couples can marry. So, cool. So that's what's going on there.
Cool.
Anyway, so what else have you got?
Got a couple things. I'm not quite sure where to go from here.
Okay.
As I shuffle things around here, change up my priorities as time changes and topics change. I do really like this one, though. This is not. I guess I hate to say it this way. I'm not sure this particular article actually has a point.
Okay. Well, that's all right.
But it's a good summary of the kinds of experiences that happen and the kinds of people that we run into. And you were talking about that sort of uncomfortable, weird part of transition where things don't line up.
Yeah.
And this is a little piece from one of those experiences. And just in general, the journey that we're all on, but specifically for transgender people, that journey being just a little bit different from other people's. It was again from Huffington Post Gay Voices, and it's entitled, "Are You a Boy?" A 4-year-old boy asked me once, "Are you a boy or are you a girl?" I responded, "That's a good question," buying myself a few minutes to think about how to answer. I didn't look very much like a woman at the time, and I didn't exactly look like a man either. It was an awkward time in my transition when questions like this one were just beginning to become an expected part of my day, although seldom as innocent and honest as was the question this day. After a few seconds, I stopped and turned to the boy and asked, "What do you think?" He stopped and he looked at me and said, "I think you're a girl because you have a purse and you're wearing a necklace." I said, "That's a good answer." And from that moment on, I was a girl in this young man's mind. The question had been asked and answered. That was that. No need to spend any more time trying to figure out what it all meant, or if it was right or wrong. It just was. It was during the same time in my transition that I went with some friends to a local restaurant for lunch. As I sat down at the table with my friends, I noticed some other patrons staring at me. Soon after, they caught the attention of their server and were quickly shuffled off to another table where they wouldn't have to look at me.
Wow.
Those were the days, my friend. Every moment of every day contained the possibility that anything could happen, anything good and anything bad. "You're so courageous to be who you are," some people would say to me. I would respond as politely as I knew how, but I would be thinking how courageous it would be to go back and not be who I am. Those were frightening times, but at least they contained the possibility that something good could happen. Before that possibility didn't exist. All that existed was the certainty that each and every day would contain thoughts of suicide, the certainty that eventually I'll die, and that day would be a good day because the pain would stop. Going back to that life would have been truly courageous indeed. It was during this time of my transition that I was able to start my day in front of the makeup mirror, to choose the day's clothing by how much it matched my soul and told the truth, rather than by how it reminded me of the daily lie I was pretending to be a man. It was a time when I walked out the door of my home in sweet, perfect honesty. A time when my closet became a place for clothing, which was a good thing because I was about to need the space. It was a time of hope. Living in a time of hope is far less courageous than living in a time of no hope. It was a time when dreams began to become dares, and dares began to become life. It was a time when I would begin to surround myself with people who didn't need to ask me if I was a boy or a girl. They just knew. I began to discover myself within the framework of who I was, to discover my woman self within a newly discovered freedom to be my woman self. and to watch her come to life, and to see me come to life with her, as her. Little did I know of the amazing journey that could only begin when I asked myself the same question that was asked by the 4-year-old boy. Am I a boy or am I a girl? Little did I know that there would still be otherwise knowledgeable adults 7 years later still asking me the same question. I haven't found it necessary to ask myself that same question in a really long time. I still have a purse and I still wear a necklace. It is both far more complicated than that and just as simple as that, because who I am is who I say I am. And from that moment on, I was a girl in this young man's mind. The question had been asked and answered. That was that. No need to spend any more time trying to figure out what it all meant, if it was right or wrong. It just was.
It's interesting. Yeah.
But I thought it was cute.
Yeah. It is a crazy time.
And that was, from the looks of this, that was Stephanie Mott, trans in Topeka.
In Topeka, wow. Yeah. Kind of cool.
I've got 2 other pieces here if you want, unless you have something you want to go through.
I was just gonna talk briefly. This is a crazy piece. I actually have a very long op-ed here about kids, but I think I'm going to save that because there probably won't be time for it. But this was just
we have about
this was just. I just had to share this with you. This is about Pat Robertson. Pat Robertson wants a Facebook vomit button.
Yes, he supports marijuana, but not LGBT people.
Anyway, I'm going to read this to you quick. While many Facebook users have been begging the social networking site for a dislike button to accompany the site's ubiquitous like function, televangelist Pat Robertson wants a more visceral way to express his disapproval. On Sunday's episode of the 700 Club, Robertson said, "Seeing a picture of 2 men kissing on Facebook makes him physically sick," according to the video from Right Wing Watch posted on at the Raw Story. "Well, that makes me want to throw up," Robertson said, responding to a viewer who wanted to know if liking something on Facebook was tantamount to condoning the practice. To me, I would punch vomit, not like, but they don't give you that option on Facebook. Robertson then nearly doubled over laughing before confirming that liking a gay couple's photo on Facebook is indeed condoning that couple's relationship. Later in the broadcast, the notorious homophobe railed on the Supreme Court for its landmark decision last month to strike down the so-called Defense of Marriage Act and allow the federal government to recognize legally married same-sex couples. For some reason now, the Supreme Court has said homosexuality is now a constitutional right.
Which it didn't.
Yeah, which it didn't. Said Robertson while citing Leviticus. And this decision that was handed down recently by the majority glorifies this activity and talks about the civil rights and all this. Well, the Bible didn't talk about civil rights. It talked about this was an offense against God, and it was an offense against the land, and the land would vomit you. And the land would vomit you out. Anyway, yeah, okay.
And I love that stuff because it's like, all right, if you want to live in a country where the civil laws that elected officials pass reflect your religious beliefs, you have Iran, you have Israel, and you have Rome. Take your pick.
Yeah.
Those are all theocracies. Fortunately, in this country, freedom of religion means freedom from religion for those of us that don't share your religion.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to share that because I thought that was kind of funny.
Yes.
In a sort of sad way.
And again, I mean, it's really convenient, and I see it too often with him and a 700 Club members, but the Supreme Court did not say that it's a constitutional protection. It's a constitutional right to be same-sex married. If they had said that, then all the states that are banning it would now be unconstitutional.
Yeah.
What they said is that the federal government shouldn't be making the call, and that it should be the state's right to make the call.
Yeah. Anyway, I've kind of run us out of time here
Yes.
just about, but was there something quick you had?
Next week?
Next week?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's fine.
Because we are actually out of time.
We are.
Oddly enough,
Without any B-roll, we still managed to fill an hour.
that just seems to happen somehow. I don't know. I don't get it. It's the apparent nonlinear nature of time. I talk about that sometimes, but
I don't know, most of the people that sit around me talking for an hour don't feel like it's nonlinear.
well, that's true.
They feel like it's an asymptote. When will this ever end?
Okay, well, it's going to end right now because we actually have to go. Anyway, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.